The second big area was energy reform, and this is where the question on gas prices comes. This is still a problem. This is Naftogaz generates a deficit of about 2% of GDP, but even this somehow masks the total cost of gas subsidies. You see, because that deficit of 2%, Naftogaz is also using all the revenues it gets for the transit fees and other profitable activities. So if you clean and do a more economic calculation, this country is basically using about 4% of GDP in gas subsidies. This is a significant amount of output to be spent in literally burning it, because that's what you're doing. You're literally burning it. It's one of the most inefficient countries in terms of energy use. You compare the amount of energy used per unit of GDP in Europe and in Ukraine, the difference is so out of proportion. And you go to other social needs, is also more is used in gas subsidies than on health expenditure. I mean, this doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Now, what we have always said, we do understand that obviously there are segments of the population who are poor and cannot afford the higher gas prices. So we have always been supportive that you need to increase the gas prices for everyone. I should not be subsidized. My friend Andre should not be subsidized. And honestly, I don't think anyone in this room should be subsidized. But there are people who need to be subsidized. Well, for the very poor, you need to reform social programs, do targeted cash transfers, give it to the poor. But it makes no sense to give the general subsidies. Because who appropriate these subsidies? Obviously are the rich. Because the amount of heating that you need for an apartment of 20 square meters is nothing to do with someone who has a house of 800 square meters and a swimming pool. So obviously, per unit of energy that you consume, the people who appropriate the subsidy massively are the rich, are not really the poor. So we support having social programs targeted to the poor to offset and facilitate their situation. However, the gas subsidy doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense from an economic point of view, doesn't make sense from a social point of view, and we believe it's still a challenge and we believe it's essential.